Hello, everyone. I'm Poornima Seetharaman. Thank you for joining me here today to hear about my journey. Thanks to the wonderful folks at Women in Games and the sponsors for giving me this opportunity. I'm a game developer from India. I've been part of the gaming industry for about 14 odd years now. To begin with, I would like to take you a few years before I started working. This was a time where access to a personal computer was not there. I got it like much later in my teens. My amazing parents saved up money because I was doing engineering at that time, and they realized how important it was for me to get one. And but it also opened, the path to something that would define what I am today. I played Tetris and Mario and Duck Hunt on these cheap Game Boy and NES clones that we used to get here. But I think once I had my PC, it was a whole different world. My friends introduced me to Age of Empires 2 and Warcraft 3. And I remember how I used to, beat them at their own game. Like they taught me, but they were awesome. They actually tried to find ways to strategize and counter what I used to do. I felt like an equal. They didn't treat me any different. So I think that was very important for me to define what I am today. I think that starting point was very crucial. And I started creating these campaigns and mods, and I was giving it to them for feedback. I didn't know I was actually doing some part of game design at that point. It was just fun for me. I was just having a lot of experimental things to do there. I also remember this game called Zeus, which is where I got intrigued with Greek mythology, and that's why most of my tags in some form is Artemis. Um, and I think for me, it opened a new, different world for gaming. I started thinking that games can do a lot more than just, pastime and fun. Through this mythology, I was like getting interested. I started reading up on Greek mythology, and then from there, I went to Norse and so many things. It just opened so many things for me. And I feel like, especially someone who has vivid dreams, I note down my dreams. I even sometimes do narrative games based off my dreams. For me, I felt like that's what it is. Like as a game, even though the designer has come up with something, you're in the same setting. But I thought, all of us as players can experience it very differently. And that's the beauty of it. And so, and I also remember this game called Ragnarok Online, which was huge in India for a while. Very few female gamers, and I was one of them. I used to be at dungeons and skipping my lunch or breakfast or dinner, and my mom would be screaming at me, and my sweet little sister, she's my older sister, but she would come and feed me while I'm fighting monsters. She never understood gaming. She still doesn't. My nephew, however, is like trying to follow my footsteps. But she was always very supportive of what I took interest in. She understood I really liked doing this. So this was my crush phase, as I would like to call it. And after a small stint as a wedding planner for my sister, I chanced upon a programming role at a South Korean gaming company, which is based off India. Then I got the opportunity to dabble with game design thanks to a college mate who said I might be good for that role. And they told me to come up with a game design document, which I didn't know what it was. I had to find some template. Google barely existed properly there. There weren't enough resources. But they had given me this Dungeons and Dragons manual. I remember just opening them and completely transcending to a whole other universe and lost in the fantasy of it, in the beauty of it, in the level of details. It was just love at first sight for me. And so I think that was my love phase. I was completely head over heels with game design as a concept to make games itself. And so I tried my hand at software development. Gaming field was very niche. Finance and everything had to be taken care of. But I just couldn't bring myself to forget creating games. I really loved what I was doing, and I wanted to get back to it. And that's when I joined this other company, one of the few companies in India at that point. I got to work with titles like Bioshock Mobile, The Predator, The Office, the US series. I know it's weird to bring up that as part of my game dev career, but we did some really crazy stuff with it. And these were for devices called Brew. I don't know how many of you might know what Brew devices are, but these are like really feature phones. Barely any support. The operators were happy with us. They would give us 4 MB space to create a game, and we were doing that, and we ended up creating our own engine because there were no engines that could support what we wanted to do. And we even got nominated for IMGA for some of these titles. Recently, I also figured out, the Bioshock Mobile, has like a small, tiny cult following. I found that on YouTube and connected with a few of them, and it was really amazing to see that. It's one of those projects that's close to my heart because I think it defined me as a game designer. I got my hands dirty. I figured what it is. I learned it on the go. So I would just like to share a few snippets of a comparison between the Bioshock PC version back then and the Bioshock Mobile. So yeah, I hope you guys can see this. So yeah, low poly, but we were sticking to the storyline very clearly. Yeah, like our Big Daddy doesn't look all that scary, but yeah, we did what we could. Um, it still runs. Everyone's looking for an emulator to play this. So yeah, so this was some of the shots of Bioshock, and I think for me it was really important to learn this, and it was a great company. I was in the midst of some really talented folks. I met my husband here, and I have had some lifelong friendships with people, and these are my support system. They have stayed away from limelight, and they don't usually come out and talk, but I don't think just for me, but they have been a support system for a lot of people, and I don't think they get acknowledged enough for that. And I also got to, participate in Ernest Adams' game design workshop back to back. I remember this very fondly because later in my career, when I was thinking of exiting the industry, um, Ernest had this really nice chat. He spent some time with me and helped me clear my thoughts. And it's really sweet of him to do that. I did not expect someone, like a veteran like him to take his time out for someone like me. And because especially I had some opportunities abroad and I couldn't, reasons beyond my control, I couldn't make it. And so I was just generally feeling disappointed about, losing out on opportunities. And then when India was looked as the outsourcing for a lot of global brands, like a lot of companies had come down here. But when I went and spoke to them, I felt like my current company is doing a lot more creative stuff. So I decided not to pursue that. And hindsight 2020, maybe I should have joined and raked up on those brands onto my CV, which definitely helped. But knowing me, I probably would do the same things if I got a do-over. Yeah, so yeah, it's been fun. But I then went to South Korea for a small duration, and I came back and started a game design consultancy with another friend of mine. We were two women running a game design consultancy in India. It was almost unheard of. We had angel investors coming to us offering funding, and we were too naive to know how to run a business. We were like, oh, we are having fun, we are doing work, we're getting enough money, we are happy. We don't want to think of scaling this or anything. We were really stupid at that point. But yeah, but that was also a good learning for us. And I think post that I got the opportunity to work on franchises like How to Train Your Dragon. I dabbled with Social Casino for a while. I went on to lead a gaming division for an augmented reality company. And at this time, I thought, I want to start again. I want to make games that I've always wanted to make. And with a common friend, I actually partnered and we started our own game company. We had a great team of employees who are more than just employees. They have been my family and a whole support system outside as well. And we were gearing towards working on the games we wanted to, but fate had different plans. I recently celebrated my 1 year breakup anniversary of my venture. When that happened, actually, I suffered from a lot of depression. And I still tried to do my own thing for 3 months. I said, I want to prove to myself that I can achieve something. And that's usually my take on most problems that comes to me. And I told these employees, they were also offered, my partner had also offered them jobs. And I said, this 3 months, that's it, you guys can leave. I have no problem with that. But they were amazing. They stood by my side. We actually managed to finish off 2 games by the end of 3 months, small games, obviously. And but I thought, the silver lining a failure can bring, not only just a lot of learnings, but for me, it was also these friends who came in the form of employees. And today I work as a lead game designer at Zynga. And this actually I ended up joining them because I had really amazing interview with them. I met some wonderful folks. I thought, talking to them, we had connected, great wavelength, great ethics. And I felt like I can learn and, discuss things with them. And for me, I think it's very important how an interview goes, how the person reacts to it. I define that whether I can work with them or not is important for me. And while that is there, but one of my dream projects has always been a ode to my late aunt. Carnatic music is a form of classical music based off South India, and she dedicated her entire life to teaching her students and stayed away from fame. And a lot of her students are actually well-known, renowned musicians in India. So I have wanted to, like, she passed away like 5.5 years ago, and I wanted to pay a homage to her by making a game on Carnatic fusion music. And I feel music is without barriers, even whether you understand the language or not. You connect with music. I think it just resonates and it can make you feel so many different things. And so do games. And I thought, marrying these two would be absolutely amazing. And on that, I had like made a few mandalas. So in India, we have something called the Navarasa, which is 9 emotions. So I wanted the game to be based on the player's journey, taking them through the entire 9 emotions through a musical journey. So that's my dream project. I'll hopefully make it in a few years' time. I don't know. But yeah, I can just share some of the shots of it. So the project's tentative name is Madhuram, which essentially means sweetness. We have Lord Krishna, who is like a deity identified with sweetness. So, and he uses a flute, and that's the icon on Madhuram as well. And these are some of the emotions. So, Shringaram, which is romance, and Hasyam, which is joy or comedy. Then we have Raudram, which is anger. Then we have Karunyam, which is sorrow or mercy, compassion. Then we have Viram, that's courage. Then we have Adbhutam, that is wonder. And then we have Shantam, that's peace and tranquility. So the idea is to, marry music with these emotions and bring it. So this is my ongoing relationship phase, as I would like to call. Yeah, so that brings us towards the end. I just had a few things as a takeaway. I know that while we mention everyone is, diverse and being inclusive, there are plenty of silos that operate with the old mindset. Even now, after 14 years, it's still a fight at times. But thankfully, there are like a lot more voices, a lot more allies standing, and and platforms like this where we are able to demonstrate what we faced or show what capabilities we have. So it's I think it's amazing. It's better times now. Even back then, I think I ignored noise and be in the company of my earnest friends who would help me through this, who would help me become a better person. And I think that was important for me. At the risk of sounding very cliche, I think I will still go ahead and quote Dumbledore, which is helpful always given to those who ask for it. Sometimes it might take a delay, like take some time, but I know it's hard to ask for help. I myself face that problem, but it is still important that we know, we can. I think it's really important to keep up the good fight. It may or may not help us directly, but I've seen that it always helps someone else in the future. And I think for me, it has always been relying on results. When someone says, I've been hired for diversity's sake, or I'm not good enough, which very well might be the case, I think my response to that is like, I'll take that as a challenge and do twice the results, show twice the results of that of an average man. And I remember recently having this conversation with my manager, and he's like, "But you shouldn't be doing twice the work." And it's really amazing to have such people lead you. But the truth is that not everyone thinks that same way, and it's still that you're judged a whole lot more, and you have to actually do a lot more than an average man. But I think slowly and steadily we are changing that mentality with more women in leadership and with more men like my boss, like, more allies coming in. It'll be a much better place for us. And I know as a, like, it's a simple thing I want to talk, like, we all have faced struggles. Uh, the struggle intensity may be different. I've had my share of struggles, some that I've shared here, some I can't because it's too personal. I feel like some of us may have struggled and some may not have, and just because you have not struggled doesn't mean, it's what you achieved is not good enough. The idea is that, if you have privilege, you help those who don't. And if I have struggled and I've got here, the idea is to make sure someone doesn't have to go through that again. The idea is to make it a much more leveling field for all. And so for my four things is never cease to learn, help others and ask for help, give credit where it's due. And I think it's one main thing is remember it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to be emotional and it's okay to be attached to what you're doing. And with that, yeah, I would like to thank you all for listening in. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Poornima. That was a very insightful insight into your career and where you've got to. So we've got a couple of questions on the chat, and I've got a few for you as well. So Amanda asks, how do you get a game design portfolio together?
So as for game design portfolio, I would say one main thing is like I would recommend participating in game jams and building up that entire idea of a game development process. And one main thing when we are assessing game designers is also we keep looking at what kind of games they have made, what kind of documentation, some form of documentation in explaining how the mechanics works or how a level design works. Those are key, and that's what we look at. So building a game design portfolio, I would say, like, take a game idea, try to create it. There are a lot of visual scripting engines these days, and I feel like you should have that kind of a mini demo or a video to showcase for us to understand, how good you're at it.
Thank you. Follow-up question from Amanda. A lot of game engines and program languages are based on the English language. How much of a barrier do you think this is, and do you think some thought and money should be given to programming languages that aren't predominantly English?
Yes, I actually think we should, because I think that has created a barrier. While there are a lot of, English is kind of a first language in India. So while it is not as much as a problem, but there are tier two, tier three cities in here who do not have that privilege of learning English. And they actually struggle, like, get the basics of it done to be able to code. And I feel like there were, I don't quite recall, but I had someone who had done something in Hindi and how they could translate that into English. Someone was working on it like way before. I'm not quite sure how it is, but I definitely think we should invest in that because programming and the logic mindset need not be restricted to a language. I feel like it should be diverse enough for us to take it.
Thank you. And what advice would you give to your younger self, Poornima?
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I would say, like, I think I was very, trigger angry, or like, if I didn't want something, I would just walk away. I feel like over time, I would like to have been a little bit more patient, to be smart enough to understand that sometimes to make a change, you need to be in the system. And I think that's the learning I would like to give my younger self, that you need to be part of the system to change the system.
I completely agree. And so we've spoken a lot through the conference about education and attracting women into games. What was that like for you in your education? Was STEM subjects and games as a career encouraged, or was it your passion for gaming at a young age that drove you to that?
So for me, it was the passion and a complete chance that I ended up, landing up the first programming job at a gaming company. Because at that time gaming was too niche in India that anyone, like, no one thought there was a career that could be made out of it. Like, even to extent when I gave my interview in one of the early companies, they made me write the story of Warcraft 3 because they weren't sure I actually played it.
Right.
Like, they literally write it down.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so I think for me at least, my parents encouraged, so engineering and science, like medical, were two very prominent things that was encouraged in my household. So for me at least, the whole STEM aspect was covered.
Right.
And which I think in India it gets covered. Like, a lot of, especially women are pretty talented and usually are the toppers who come out in exams. And but I think after STEM, what they do is the key part. I think the early college they get access to the whole STEM thing, but after that they don't pursue a career necessarily in it. I feel like engineering, forget gaming, like even engineering and IT sector is still looked out as a male-dominated field. But now we have more women entering it, and I'm hoping that that will also come into gaming. I think culturally we think gaming as a pastime only. We don't, expect that could be a career. We always look at it as a waste of time.
Right.
Changing that mindset is what will bring people into this.
Definitely.
And I think men needs to be more, I have this thing of spectrum of players, from casual to hardcore. And I feel like any game you pick, you can be anywhere on that spectrum. So I could pick a Candy Crush and I could be playing it at a hardcore level.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I could pick a Skyrim and I could just be walking around and enjoying it at a casual level.
Yeah.
So I feel like besides what the games are made for, how we experience it also differs.
Mm.
So I keep telling all my students that never diss anyone for any kind of game they play. It's important that they do.
That's a really interesting point. And so you mentioned there that your singer interview was really amazing. What was the key sort of takeaways? Why did you feel that experience was amazing?
So for me, I think when so I feel like when we are interviewing someone or someone's interviewing us, uh, one thing everyone should understand is that the judging is happening both ways. And especially when I come to a level where after a decade of experience, I get the privilege to judge someone and decide to join them or not. And for me, the interesting thing was that when I'm talking to someone, it has to be more of a conversation rather than trying to prove a point that you're better or I am better, which usually happens in a
Yeah.
lot of interviews. And but for here, I felt like it was a lot more knowledge sharing. It was talking about future scopes, like what would you do if this is a situation, and it was very opening for me. And I felt like these are people who know what they are trying to do and what they're trying to achieve. So I felt like yes, these kind of people are the people I want to continue working with, and that for me changed my
Yeah.
decision.
Thank you. And one final question for me, Poornima, is what are your career aspirations for the future?
So I know that I would like to go back on the creating my own game, being indie. Um, I recently did get to meet Adrian from Nomada Studio who made Gris. And Gris is very close to the kind of dream project Madhuram
Okay.
that I
Yeah.
have. And he was so lovely. Like, I did take him through this and he likes it too. So that's huge validation
Yeah.
for me. And then so I want to go back and do that. Right now I'm pretty happy at what I'm doing. I'm getting to do some interesting stuff. But eventually in a few years I would want to go back and create that. This is just one of the dream projects. I have like a few more in my head. And so I want to do all that. I want to put something out there that I'm very proud of. So yeah.
Right, lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Poornima, for joining us.
Sure.
Really appreciate that. Thank you all for watching and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you all. Thank you
Bye.
so much. Bye.